Annual webinars, and we've done 2 so far this year. We're going to be doing the next one next week, actually, which is going to be about the role of firewood in political protests throughout North America. So that'll be a really interesting one. If you would like information about that webinar, you can go to our blog. It is posted there. We also do a lot of outreach anchoring and provide that sort of information to the outreach public, the meta outreach, the outreaching to the outreachers. So if you work for a CAPS program or work for the Canadian Council on Invasive Species or whatever, and you need to figure out how to get information out to the public, one really great way to do it is to anchor your outreach to a bigger event. So whether it's Emerald Ash Borer Awareness Week, Firewood Awareness Month, Tree Check Month, which is August, Arbor Day, anything. So we have templates and example press releases and example links to high quality news releases, etc., for a vast group of outreach anchors that you could use. Earth Day, for instance. We even have one for Christmas because you're supposed to dispose of your Christmas tree in an environmentally friendly way, etc. One really cool outreach anchor that I love is National Moth Week. I have an irrational love for it. And of course, it's all about native moths. So I figure, why can't we just talk about gypsy moth? Because they have a beautiful caterpillar, and you could teach all of these moth lovers to identify gypsy moth caterpillars because they already love moths. So that sort of anchoring and getting people engaged at whatever point they're most fascinated by is some of the stuff that we work to help professionals accomplish in their work environment. Our map is a very well regarded tool, partially because it is entirely a unique tool, as far as I know, in the world of invasive species outreach. So you can go to any state on our map and click on it. I live in Montana, so I love giving the example of Montana. And it brings up a layperson's summary of every single firewood regulation, recommendation, and pest threat that applies to that state, both inbound and outbound. So if you go to Montana, you're going to be informed that not only should you not bring firewood from the Great Lakes area into Montana because of the threat of emerald ash borer and gypsy moth, for instance, but you're also going to be informed that mountain pine beetle could be moved into the Black Hills of the Dakotas. And so you should not have outbound pine-based firewood out of Montana either. Now, these messages are tricky because some of them are backed up with federal or state or park regulation, others are not. And we have every single one of them translated into common English in very simple terminology that is not legally bound, so we don't have to use all the crazy words that we're all familiar with in phytosanitary regulations. We can actually just say it out loud. Don't do it. Don't bring firewood. Or it is legal in some cases, but we usually glaze over that. And then we update it either annually or upon need or request. It's essentially a crowdsourced map. So we have all 50 states updated once a year at a bare minimum. We used to do Canada as a monolith, but what I'm going to be doing is the new map allows me to break out each province, and we'll be able to list the inbound, internal, and outbound based firewood regulations and recommendations for every single province, and then we will have our Canadians fact check them to make sure that we're getting it right. If you ever find an error on my map, tell me immediately. I usually can fix it same day. The big thing that we do that I think is a really exciting feature for everyone is that we provide custom outreach materials on our templates upon request to anybody that is a not-for-profit entity, full stop. So until we get so many requests that we run out of time and money, we will continue to do it for everyone. The most common requests are our posters. We have two brand new templates for 2017. We have the dark template and the light template. The dark template usually is more eye-catching unless it's in an area that's going to receive extreme UV, in which case black fades out and looks ugly. So then we suggest the light template. The other nice thing is that we can customize with insects or no insects. So the dark template works well with emerald ash borer and other light-colored insects, and then the light template works best with things like Asian longhorn beetle. That's a black insect, so you wouldn't want to put it on a night sky. You wouldn't see it. So that's why we have the 2 different color varieties. Some states and agencies prefer an insect-free look, which is actually my preference as well, but others like to have insect coming out of the firewood. We customize all of these things, all the wording, everything according to what you need. We also offer billboards, postcards front and back, frequently asked questions, sheets with really nice headers, all sorts of stuff. And you just come to us, we customize it to the best of our ability to work for you, and then you get it printed on your dime or posted on the highway of your choice or whatever it is that you're looking at. It's a free service, so please come to me and ask me for this if you think it's going to be important in your area. Another thing that we do is that we adjust the wording. I can't emphasize that enough. We are fully willing to change the wording according to your regional needs. So if you don't want to mention pest, we won't mention that pest. If you want to say that you should always bring certified heat-treated firewood because you work in Great Smoky Mountain National Park where that is now a requirement for firewood use as a blanket, then we will say that instead of saying use local firewood. If you allow gathering firewood in your park or province or whatever, we will say to gather firewood on site because it's the best option. We feel like in order to apply to the entire continent of North America, you have to customize all your materials. And so you tell us what's going to work best for you. And no one will question the fact that different American states have different internal cultures. And so, you know, if culturally you think that telling people to buy something isn't going to work nearly as well as telling them to get it locally, for instance, as subtle differences of wording, we'll change it as needed. Here's a couple examples of our previous templates, but I thought it was instructive to see some of our customized materials. The one on the far left is an advertisement we did in USA Today Annual National Parks Edition. So we changed the wording in order to work best for America's national parks. The center one is a poster that we have done every couple years, updated for the California Firewood Task Force. So you can see they have a heck of a lot of partners. Look at all those little logos. And so we represent all those logos across the bottom, but then they have their flagship URL and bigger text, that firewood.ca.gov, so that they can funnel everybody to the right URL for them. But we represent also the Don't Move Firewood logo in that array so that people also go to our site. So it's win-win for both parties. And then that's me. And that is our our watercraft inspection station information boards that are deployed all over the state of Montana. So every watercraft inspection station in Montana that's inspecting for various aquatic nuisance species also has one of these information boards right next to where the public is supposed to stand when they hot wash the boats, so that they can read the sign and ask the inspectors any questions. So they get two different types of invasive species education simultaneously when they're at that station. You can imagine that a heck of a lot of boat owners drive a big truck or they drive an RV, so they're very likely to be a firewood mover type person. So to have them reach that information board and read it is an outstanding way to piggyback on an existing effort with very little cost to us. That's a program that we've had going, I think, for 4 years now, and we're very proud of it because I think it's a really great synergy. And I wanted to get in for this group because we're talking about professional development of best messaging yesterday especially. I did want to make sure that everybody knows that there's a really interesting dichotomy in our message and our slogans. When you ask professionals what they think the best slogan is, and I don't mean messaging professionals, I mean forest health professionals in the field, they'll say that Don't Move Firewood is, and that's 46% of people. But after I did this poll, I actually realized that I had done two major mistakes. One is that you should never ask the choir for advice on the music. You should ask the audience. And the other is that I split the vote by mistake. So buy local, burn local is the Bernie Sanders. You can't do that. You end up with weird statistics. So then I did it right, and I asked about 1,000 members of the public, what do you think is the most effective slogan? And I only let them pick between two, so I didn't let anybody split the vote. And the positive, directive, behavior-based messages are what the public thinks are most effective, which is what messaging professionals in the field of behavior change also agree is most effective. So when you ask it right, you come up with this answer. When you ask it wrong, you come up with the prior answer, which is fascinating. So buy it where you burn it is the slogan that the public thinks will encourage them to incorporate the right behavior in their lives so that they don't move invasive species. Now, buy local, burn local is used by a few different groups. I'm working very hard to convince them that having two positive behavior change messages is dilution and that we are trying to move towards a pure buy it where you burn it message. I don't really have anything against buy local, burn local, except for the fact that it's 2 locations more or less versus 48 locations. And so it would be best if we just all kind of got on the same page. They actually poll very similarly. There's no statistical difference between buy it where you burn it and buy local, burn local in terms of the public. How am I doing? Oh, I am rocking it because you started late. The ongoing work with partners that I wanted to highlight to this group is that we are working to always improve our messaging on reserveamerica.com and recreation.gov, the flagship reservation services for all federal reservable campgrounds in the United States. If the statistics that I received from that contractor are accurate, all 2,235 reservable National Forest campgrounds now use our messaging in both the know before you go section and the email confirmation slip. And all 695 Army Corps of Engineer reservable campgrounds also use the identical messaging, with the exception of in California, where they refer people to firewood.ca.gov, which is fine by me. That website's awesome. National parks, we are working on it. We have really good integration into the know before you go section of national park reservable campground reservations. We don't have such good integration into some of the emails or the nps.gov URL pages themselves, which are held by separate entities. So those are held by the agency, whereas recreation.gov and Reserve America are not. Those are held by a contractor. So these sorts of little nitty-gritties are what gets the public to see this message over and over. So first they go to the nps.gov website, where they may or may not see the message not to bring firewood to their favorite national park, but then they go to make their reservation, and there they see the message, and then they get the email. In the email, is the message there, or is it not? That's an important detail, because the email is what they're probably going to print out, and months later they're going to refer to, because they entered a lottery for that campground 9 months away, so it's got to be on that email. Then they're going to be driving there. Are they going to see a billboard that has the same message reinforcing the importance of their action? When they arrive in the campground, are they going to see tons of other people bringing in certified heat-treated firewood, so they know that they're doing the right thing along with all the other people? So there's a supply chain sort of system of outreach where you set up moments all the way until that campground is arrived at. Then if they arrive at the campground, then they finally see the poster in it. What do? We have that on there. If you've already brought firewood, please dispose of it as quickly as possible. Do not bring it home with you. Do not leave it for the next person. So we have that entire chain taken care of. We also, as the convening group for all the firewood outreach in North America, we do our very best to communicate all of these best practices through our webinar series, through our website, through our professional development stuff. We also advise on various regulations, such as the 2015 Great Smoky Mountain National Park regulation on heat-treated firewood only. And we advise on just state-based regulation discussions. In this particular year, because it was the legislative years for a lot of states, we advised on both the Utah considering the concept of a state regulation on firewood movement from other states, as well as Montana considering the concept. What might that look like? Who would be the allies? Who might be a roadblock? So that's experience that we have, and we're happy to help anybody who's interested in that. We also serve on the functional board of Firewood Scout. In this case, the we is very royal. It's me on the Firewood Scout. There's 2 other people that run Firewood Scout, and if anybody is not familiar with that in the United States, it is a firewood vendor listing site that is a pay-to-play model where you can list all the vendors in your state, and it comes up on a Google map, and you can search by park or by county or by city or anything to find the closest firewood vendor to you. So it's a cool system. And one of the things that Don't Move Firewood doesn't do is vendor listing, because it's not really within our scope. And so we have put all of our effort into Firewood Scout because it's within their scope. This is an example of an email I got. Last year, I made a reservation in Arches National Park for spring break with my kids. And there it was. I'm going to read it. Sorry to read the slide, but it's tiny, right? Some federal agencies have imposed quarantines on transporting firewood. Please check with your camping destination about firewood restrictions. Visit don'tmovefirewood.org for more information. So the National Park Service requested that the Arches National Park unit place this on their confirmation email. So you can tell it's complicated, right? How many national parks units are there? Congaree, help me. Tons. It's like 400, right?
500.
500, and we have to do this for every one of them that has reservable campgrounds. So it's tricky, but it can be done. Persistence. That is my email if you'd like to ask me about anything I presented. We also loan out costumes at no cost to anybody who is doing an outreach event, not for profit, that will reach more than 100 people. It's a very low bar. That's me on the left with the State Plant Health Director of Montana, Gary Adams. He's a super cool guy. I also have a video of him wearing the costume. And that is us in the Montana State Rotunda during the legislative session, educating legislators on the importance of invasive species prevention. It's a hot topic this year because of our zebra mussel find. Nailed it. Any questions?
Jamie Reeser said she hopes that the National Invasive Species Council will hold its first meeting in 10 years in Montana in June.
Yes.
You organized for this?
I am fully aware of it. I am not yet appointed to the Montana Invasive Species Advisory Council, but my application has been submitted, and they are all aware of it.
Okay. Make sure you got a costume.
Which one should I wear? Sir?
Your message is pretty beneficial for everybody. What kind of response have you got from like Good Sam organization or KOA or folks like that?
They are very, very accepting and interested. The vast majority of those private campground owners own their campground land, and when their trees die, their business dies with it. I used to do a lot of outreach to the campground owners, and then I discovered that it was not necessary. They already knew. I don't prioritize the major organizations anymore. Their professional development is typically very good. I showed up at one major convention for the Jellystone group, and they literally could have given the presentation for me. So, which was great, but I was like, all right, guys, I'll just see who you are then. You know, they know. Some of the roadblocks we see are in the states where emerald ash borer and gypsy moth have not been as impactful. So basically like the southwest quarter, not the southwest itself, but the southwest quarter of the United States. But they also don't have a lot of private campgrounds. They have a different model. That's a federal dominated land ownership area. So it just requires a different technique.
So I brought up Instagram earlier because I think it can be really productive for you guys.
Yep.
And I see a lot of parallels between the positive messaging that you're trying to, or the action you're trying to create, and what Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics is doing.
Yes.
And they've been really successful at using those sorts of social media outlets to reach people. And
Yes.
and they have a lot of the same messages. So I don't know if you're partnering with them, but I think maybe you should partner.
We do a lot of partnering with Leave No Trace. They participated in Firewood Awareness Month, and we've, through the years, managed to get them to change their curriculum to reflect our preferred messaging, which has been they only review their curriculum about every 3 years, which makes sense. I mean, you can't review it every year. So we had to wait until the cycle went through for everything to go through. And some of their printed materials still don't reflect that because of the, you run through your old prints, and that's fine. But all their new stuff does. So, and I agree, we could do a lot more cool stuff on Instagram, and we could do a lot more cool stuff on Facebook if we had a little bit more time. All of our time is limited. So what I try to do is just prioritize according to what I can do the best of. This July we'll start a new budget cycle, and we're going to have a lot more freedom to promote posts on Facebook. And when you promote a post on Facebook, you can target the demographic group very tightly according to their demographic information that they mine from you as a Facebook member. And so I will be essentially targeting those groups to see how they respond throughout the year with our new advertising budget on Facebook. I'll let you guys know next year how that goes.
I noticed what you were saying about the posters and that you do that for no cost to nonprofits. Do you also do that for like state agencies?
Oh, mostly for state agencies.
Okay.
It's anything that isn't for profit. So state, federal, local, city, county, nonprofit.
I just heard the nonprofit was who you're aiming for.
Oh, I'm sorry, I must have just said it wrong. I just meant as long as it's not for profit.
Right, okay.
Have you reached out to some of the
businesses like LL Bean and REI and Camp North, you know, that sell stuff to people that are going to go out camping, and what's the result of that?
We haven't done a lot of outreach to them specifically. It's always been something we've considered. It's never risen to the top of the priority list because we have only so much to do. But it's a great idea that comes up all the time. It simply hasn't been the top idea.
Thank you very much, Lee.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up we have Susan Burks, who is the Invasive Species Program Coordinator for the Minnesota DNR. Excuse me. She's going to speak to us about Play Clean Go.
I too want to thank you for inviting me to come here. This is really a great opportunity, and it's pretty exciting to hear everything that's going on. There's a lot of similarities between what Lee and I have been doing, so we'll talk about that. Also want to do a shout out to Belle Bergner, just starting up, talk to her as well. So I'm going to kind of skip over the why we need it. You guys all know that, but I am going to give a little bit about the background and kind of how we got started, where we are, and then where we think we're going. Now let's make sure I understand how to use all of the... So first of all, just what is Play Clean Go? And it's a branded outreach campaign, so we are nationally registered as a trademark out there. It was developed and launched by the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, the Division of Forestry. And the goal was to disrupt the link between outdoor recreation and the spread of terrestrial and terrestrial invasive species. So at that time, Minnesota in particular is very committed to the Stop Aquatic Hitchhikers program for their aquatic messaging. So our focus really was looking at the terrestrial, but that changes over time, and we'll talk about that. We originally focused on trail users, and again, that was specifically because most of the outreach out there was on firewood. There was very little, if any, outreach on there, reaching out to the various kinds of trail users that we have. And then in 2015, we expanded that, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that was about. So how we got started is that our department established an internal policy about all of our lands and all of our staff, what our regulations were, and then the Division of Forestry initiated my position in 2007, so I've been in that since then. Prior to that, I was Forest Health Protection for a lot of years. At that time, there had been a lot of politics going on, particularly around trail use. So there was a lot of legislative issues going on about who was going to have access to what kinds of trails. So at that time, there was a lot of kind of defensiveness, feeling picked on. So we wanted to make sure that we weren't, pointing fingers. But there was a lot of that going on, the loggers in particular, as well as the recreationists. Little in the literature specific to recreation and terrestrial invasive species. There's some out there on horseback riders, mostly in the West, but very little to rely on. A lot of the outreach that is out there was very localized and consistent with somewhat mixed messages, which is some of the things that Lee's kind of dealt with variations in the kinds of messaging out there from one site to the other. And then it's a huge audience with a lot of groups. I didn't know because I'm not a motorized recreationist, but big differences in the values and the culture, between two-wheel versus four-wheel recreationists. So just understanding those and what their needs are is a big deal. And then, of course, limited funding. So we knew from the outset that we were going to be dependent on our partners to help us get the reach out there, the word. So what we did is we applied for a grant in 2008. We were able to get that through the Forest Service, put together an education plan in 2009, started the research in 2010, and then developed the blend in 2011. We were really lucky to get the same contractor that did the Stop Aquatic Hitchhikers campaign. They also just refreshed their campaign just recently, again using the same contractor. And that was really a big help. Besides being a genius in terms of the design, he really knew the segment, the audience that we were working with in the market. Then we launched the campaign. So really with an idea in mind of giving a clear call to action to be accountable. So we want them out there. We want to encourage, that passion, their enjoyment, being with their family and all of that, but doing it accountably, responsibly. So, and then we wanted to use social marketing, and I'm going to just spend a minute or two talking about that. If you haven't read this book, I would highly recommend it. Doug Mackenzie Moore is out in the Vancouver area, but he's the one that wrote the textbook and really kind of sponsored the community-based social marketing, particularly around energy conservation, recycling, those kinds of things. It's pretty new in terms of invasive species. I think we're just kind of beginning to figure it out. But I would highly recommend it. He gives a couple of courses as well as a master's program, actually working with you on your specific project to work through how you go about using social marketing to change public behavior. So doing our best to model that, we started with a group of stakeholders, and this is just a general overview. We'll go a little more details in a second. Prioritize the subgroups in there. That's when we decided to focus on trail users. And the action was to clean their gear. But as Doug would say, it needs to be more specific than that. What he talks about is kind of the chain of behaviors that first they have to kind of want to, and then they have to know what kind of tools are needed, and then they have to know where to get those tools, and then they have to remember to bring it with them, and talk to the kids about it. And any break in any one of those links doesn't produce the result that you're wanting, the change behavior. So understanding that and being very specific about what your audience needs and what their barriers are to getting that done. ID the behaviors and what their attitudes are, and then getting started on the research. So we had a core group of 8 to start with that oversaw the project as a whole. We had an advisory group of stakeholders, and this included recreationists as well as service providers, for the recreationists, and then some of the, agency folks. A science team to inform the process, and then we first did 9 focus groups to describe, qualitatively what were the behaviors out there, what were the concerns, how much did they know. We divided these between 3 regions within the state and 3 recreationalist groups. So these included the motorized, recreationalist, the non-motorized, and the campers. We then used those results to inform a very large phone survey. So we completed over 1,200 surveys, and that was to start putting numbers down. What percent of our audience are doing these kind of behaviors or had these kinds of concerns, so we could then look at the strategies to reach them. So the research results, and this is a just very quickie overview, is that by far the majority of the Minnesotans were proud of their state's natural resources. They identified with them as being theirs, and were proud of that. They wanted to do the right thing. They wanted to pass on their passion, with their kids, as well as teach them how to do the right things. And they knew that invasive species were harmful. What they didn't know was that there were terrestrial ones as well. They all thought about the aquatics, and so most of them were, really had no clue. When we bring it up, it's like, oh, I never thought of that. That there were on lands or in prairies or in forests, that there were invasive species there as well, that they could be moving around. And the biggest barrier that perceived was the time associated with cleaning. The quality of time with their family and with their friends was really important. So our messaging or the actions that we were trying to get them to do had to be perceived as being quick and easy, not complex and difficult. So one of the good things is that the majority of our participants are already cleaning in some fashion. So we only had 7% that aren't bothering to do anything. And I don't know what success we would have at trying to get those folks to do something. But by far the majority of them are either already cleaning on site, which is what we want them to do, or at least cleaning it someplace. So now it's just kind of shifting that, where they're cleaning it to account for the fact that they could be spreading things down the road as they're traveling. So from that, we then kind of put together what we needed to do. And the first was that it needed to encourage recreation rather than discourage it. So we wanted it to be positive. Research that our departments had done had indicated that outdoor recreation is on the decline, with the exception of the ATV riders. That is the one group that is getting larger, and it's young families with kids, so I think it'll continue getting larger. But the rest of them are going down, and that's our support base, for political support and awareness and outreach. So we really want people out there as much as possible enjoying the outdoors. It had to be voluntary. Unlike the aquatic side, there are almost no regulations on the terrestrial side and no interest in putting those regulations out there. So it needed to be something that they do on their own because they feel accountable or responsible or want to be able to provide that legacy for their kids. How to rely on partners for the extended reach, again, because of the financial limitations. How to be positive, flexible, and accessible. And just like, Lee brought up, the positive thing, even though Stop Aquatic Hitchhikers has been hugely successful at raising awareness and changing public behaviors, when we were talking to folks, there is a perception that it was government-oriented and that it was too heavy-handed and that they really, were pushing back against that. So even though we wanted to kind of model that campaign, because we knew they were going to be seen side by side in a lot of the magazines, we wanted to make sure that our messaging was positive. And then the execution, though, was going to be modeled after that. Somewhat like, Lee does, providing the materials, the graphic libraries and all of that, and then counting on partners to distribute it from there. So the branding context, this was kind of the marching orders to our contractor: fun, positive, encourage folks to get outdoors, action-oriented, what do we actually want them to do, accessible, speak to their concern about time, flexible, accommodate not only the range of audiences that we're talking about, but the range of professionals that we're going to be using it and the kinds of organizations that might be interested in adopting our campaign for their outreach methods, and then compatible with the partnered brands and Stop Aquatic Hitchhikers. So again, this is, Stop Aquatic Hitchhikers and Play Clean Go was going to be seen side by side along with all of those other partner logos. So it needed to be something that was compatible. So, and then just be good to enroll the partners, address partner needs. So this is what we ended up with, and you'll notice that the shape is somewhat like the highway sign, a lot like Stop Aquatic Hitchhikers. So there was that kind of visual connection. Although this particular shape is an informational sign rather than a regulatory sign, in the realm of highway signs. So it's one that people are used to seeing, to look for information, deer crossing, national park coming this way. We have a modular format, and I'll show you just in a second. So it's super easy to cut, paste, drop, switch out, rearrange to fit your various venues. Positive messaging, kind of playful, and this is going to make it a little bit more difficult to translate into Spanish and French because those inside jokes, or don't necessarily translate, but we're working on that. And then a really huge graphic library. We house it on Dropbox. I don't know. It's got thousands of pieces up there that ads, posters, signage, billboards, flyers, displays, articles, presentations, all a bunch of different kinds of things up there. So this is the modular format, just to, so you can see how you can cut and paste depending on what kind of venue you're putting it in or what kind of size. If you're talking about a billboard versus just a quarter page ad, on the side of a magazine. Brand signatures, both in light and dark backgrounds. And then, our cleaning aids. So since we're focusing on focusing on trail users, our first set of cleaning aids are the boot brush kiosks. I'm sure you've seen some of those out there. I don't think I know which one of these is a pointer, so rather than mess anything up, I will. The one at the bottom is kind of the standard one that most people see. So you've got a kiosk that you're kind of holding on to while you're reading and then brushing your boots off down below. And so they're relatively common. But what we do on ours is that we have 4 different species, and then we can customize those species for your particular area. So that's a lot of the graphic support that we provide, is switching out those photos and the text to get those that are specifically found on that trail. And then we've got quite a bit of room to add, the various logos that we need. We also have this smaller sign that you can put on the side of the trail. This one has been pretty popular on some of the larger hiking club associations because, one, it's much cheaper. They can backpack it in and and then get it installed that way. So like the North Country Trail Association has used that one quite a bit. It's also one that we provide in our welcome kit, so they get one for free. And then this one I thought was pretty ingenious. One of our partners put it on a mobile stand, so they're using it for field trips as they get off the bus, on and off the bus, or in the front of their office, or whatever is their they're needing it. So, and this is our primary giveaway. This is our boot brush, aka horse pick for those of you that ride horses. But it's very popular, and so at state fairs, all of our presentations, all of our events, that's what we use to give out, and people really like those. They work great on fiber soles and bike tire treads, by the way. So just a little bit, just so you can see kind of what we have. This is activity-specific media. We have a lot of that for all of the different audiences we're talking about. Species-specific media, we have quite a bit of that as well, and that's growing as we get requests from our partners. We have all different kinds of ads for print media or digital media, depending on the kind of space that you have. Billboards and banners, there's just a few of the examples that we use. This is one that the tabletop display that we've produced in Minnesota, and then we have a number of these around the state that local communities can borrow for Arbor Day events or local Earth Day events, or whatever it is that they have. So it's very easy to move around, and then we just have it on a free loan basis, and these get a lot of use. These are our bigger pull-up banners that we use for our trade shows. And again, you can see there's quite a bit of room to add logos if you want. And then you can also, tweak the language and the text at the top. Sample promos, lots of stuff out there. So how does the partnerships work? It's free to sign up to become a Play Clean Go partner. What we ask, from our partners is their URL and a promise to comply with our graphic standards. We then post that on our website. We also ask that they post a link to our website from theirs. Then we offer the graphics library, so as soon as you sign up as a Play Clean Go partner, you're given an invitation to our Dropbox library account. Basic graphic services, a lot like Lee does, to swap photos, to add a logo, to tweak the language. We give them a welcome kit of pre-printed materials, including the smaller trail signs, so you can see that in a quarterly newsletter. So the objective is to enroll, our partners to get the word out across a larger base of folks, speaking with similar language, consistent messaging, so you get that kind of brand recognition out there and the public engagement. So in 15, so that was what the launch. In 15, we developed a national steering committee that has Canadian representatives as well as U.S. And the request was to broaden it in a couple of different ways. One was to provide some guidance on how to do co-branding and why you might do different kinds of co-branding, whether you're introducing a new brand into your area, where you might want to really highlight a sister brand that is more well known, or if you're kind of migrating, refreshing your brand, some of the things that you might do. So you can see here where I've used the Stop Aquatic Hitchhikers as the example. It could be, your organization as easily as, or your funding agency. But the equal branding, typically implies that both of you are committed equally in terms of the price and the distribution of it, endorsing brands down below in terms of, the funding. You guys pretty much know this, but this is one of the things that we were asked. The other thing, I'm going to see, let's go back. Where is the back button? The other thing, which I took that slide out because it was getting a little long, is that we added aquatic. So that was a specific request. In Minnesota, as I said before, we're pretty thoroughly committed to the Stop Aquatic Hitchhikers campaign to cover all of our aquatics. But a lot of the states west of us have not been as thoroughly involved in Stop Aquatic Hitchhikers, and the Canadian partners had not been as well, because it was primarily coming out of the Fish and Wildlife Service initially, and just in the U.S., not going to Canada. But early on, even our designers within our department saw the utility of having one look and feel across all taxa. And so we got that request from our partners to add aquatic messaging, photos, the action steps and things like that. So we did that in our graphic standards. We also started a kind of this is for our own staff, Work Clean Go. And you can see, where we're using it on the field trips. This is a sticker that we put on our fleet logs, when they record their gas, or on the dashboard of their vehicle. And then the boot brushes, tire brushes are all part of what they get, as well as the the messaging. So current participation, right now we have 425 partner organizations as of the 1st of May. We're adding somewhere around 10 a month, and that growth rate has been pretty consistent since 2014 when the North American Invasive Species Management Association joined in. Those are spread across 36 states and 4 Canadian provinces, so we're beginning to get a pretty wide spread. And then, as I mentioned, the North American Invasive Species Management Association adopted Play Clean Go as their national campaign in 2014, and then the Canadian Council on Invasive Species adopted it as of 2016. So they're in the process of registering Play Clean Go nationally with their national trademark office. And then they'll be launching, an English version early on because they can do that pretty quickly just by copying our site. A little longer process will be getting translated into French and then adding that component to their website. So this is, part of that social marketing research as advised by Doug McKinsey Moore was to kind of follow that up. So we repeated the baseline survey in 2015, adding a few questions. Unfortunately, had to adjust our sampling protocols a little bit in between there. The U.S. had passed data protection laws, and then in response, our state had passed some additional ones that limited the kind of data I had access to as a state agency or employee within the state agency. But we still were able to get the kind of the breadth, which is not exactly the population. Not quite as many respondents on the survey, but still some really good numbers. So one of the things that I wanted to highlight here is that we still have a lot of work to do in Minnesota. Only 14% of our respondents had heard of Play Clean Go. So I need to get busier on that, and we are doing that in the process. But even with that small number, it did make a statistically difference in how they responded. So these numbers are not exactly clear because they're all relatively close, but this is on an agreement scale of 0 to 10. And then these are some of the specific questions we asked, and all of the numbers in red are significantly different from each other. And as you can see, those that were aware of Play Clean Go were much more likely to say or report that they know how to clean their gear, that they should clean their gear, and that invasive species impacts them personally. They were less likely to say my actions don't matter. So in other words, that double negative, they believe that their actions do matter and it's up to them to do something. So it made a significant difference, even with that small number of that had actually heard or seen the campaign materials. So we then went on and did a little pilot this last year where we did a survey on hiking combined with a pledge drive, asking folks to use the boot brush, the next time they're out hiking, and then sign a little slip saying they would do that. And we talked about remembering that all of those links in that behavior chain, so where you're going to put it, and we got some really great answers and thoughts that I would have never thought about to make sure that they remember to take it with them and know where to find it once they get out there. And then we had them sticky notes put this up at the state fair. So this is a poster that's a little bit longer than the screen here. And it was really fun because I had the very first shift and I had the very last shift. In the first, you can see, it's Be a Hero. We had zebra mussels on it and the emerald ash borer on it. And then, it's pretty, and you can see, some of our lifetime. We put these up on Facebook. Post as we were getting started, and then by the end it was completely covered. And the thing that shifted in there was in the beginning, people will, okay, maybe I'll agree, and I don't know what this is about, but it sounds like a good idea, maybe so. But then towards the end, people saw the sign and all the posts. It's like, I want to be a part of that. Whatever it is, there's that. It's got to be great if there's that many people participating. So they were coming up before they had any idea what we were about and saying, how do I join? How do I participate? So the visual effect was huge, and it was really great fun to do that. So we're going to be doing some variation of that again. And then future plans, and then we'll open up to questions. We are in the process of putting in a fairly large grant proposal. All of that data that we have so far is self-reported. Which, while it's a good measure of awareness, and attitudes, it's not a good measure for what they actually do. So part of Doug's work, what they pointed out is that awareness is not necessarily correlated to behaviors. So we really need to get the research out there to describe what are people actually doing, and is that having an impact on reducing the spread of invasive species. So putting a grant proposal in to do that research. We would like to see it repeated by other partner organizations in other parts of the state. And then taking that back to our National Steering Committee and where do we want to tweak the campaign, the messaging as a result of some of the data that we got back. And then the rinse and repeat. So part of that community-based social marketing is that kind of a constant adaptive management approach. So you identify, test, implement, assess, identify, kind of a repeated thing. So we'll continue to do that. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I work for a state agency, and this campaign really doesn't show up anywhere in my position description. So I'm right now at the bottleneck. And, like Lee was saying, they get a lot of free advertising because they're a not-for-profit organization. We are not. We don't get that for free from Google. So we're in the process. We're just wrapping up a memorandum of understanding with the North American Invasive Species Management Association to, over the next year or so, gradually shift national campaign management to them. So I don't know if you saw this out here earlier, but it's modeled after one of our posters. They are starting kind of a fundraising campaign that would pay for the national campaign manager as well as the outreach necessary to expand it eastward. We've got really great representation in the west of the U.S. And in Canada, not so good representation in the east or in Mexico. So that's kind of where we want to go. So I invite you to talk to them as well. Right now, they're doing the fundraising, but we then will be shifting partner services, those kind of graphic services to them, eventually all of the data management and the trademark. So then I can go back to what I'm supposed to be doing, which is focusing on Minnesota and my job, and let them grow it from there. So, any questions? Yeah.
So with firewood, we know that only 50% of people use firewood at all, even pick up a stick of it in a given year. So when I do a survey and I hear that, say, 25% of people have heard of don't move firewood, it's not 25% that I care about, that's actually 50% of 50%. So
Yeah.
when I look at your graph with the 14% of people in Minnesota have heard of Play Clean Go, I immediately think, well, if only 14% of people recreate outside, you've reached 100% of them. Do you have data on that, and what does that reflect?
The department has data on that in terms of what percent of the general population are actually recreate. One of the things that we asked was what activities do you participate in, and pretty much all of them had at least one in there. So hiking was by far the most common, and I'd have to go back and look at the data, but I don't think there were many at all that said we don't do any of that. So almost everybody does some form of hiking. So that, but you're right. I mean, that's part of the what Doug McKenzie-Moore is talking about is that okay, say you have 25% of your participants are active in ATV riding. And of those, 2% are never going to do what you say, come hell or high water, and the others are, 50% of those are already cleaning. Then the impact that you could make, the possible impact, starts getting, smaller and smaller. And you need to understand that for each of your audiences before you invest big chunks of change into it. Faith.
Yeah, I should have asked this of Lee as well. As you might know, there's a bill in Congress that would severely limit federal agencies' ability to pay for outreach and education. And I think all of you who are engaged in this effort need to think about how you get the message to House and Senate members that outreach and education is a very important part of these programs.
Mm-hmm.
Because all they're hearing from in the western rangeland weed people is it's a waste of money and we don't want to spend more than 15% of federal invasive species money in total on a combination of research and outreach. So you need a lobbying strategy.
Yeah. I think you're right. As a public employee, we're not allowed to lobby. So that's going to be something that we would have to count on our partners to do so. But as a not-for-profit, NISBA could do that kind of thing, and I know that they have been active in the past in some of those lobbying efforts.
So in Ontario, we launched a social media campaign a couple of years ago following the act, and we're spending $50,000 annually on that campaign, and I'm now going back to communications people and saying, okay, but have we made a change? So from a social media perspective, they're getting lots of hits, lots of tweets, lots of Facebook likes, which I'm not a social media person, but my question back is that driving behavioral change? And it's a challenge across the board in terms of there's a lot of money being spent by a lot of organizations on education outreach, but are people doing things differently as a result of seeing that sign, seeing a Facebook ad? And I don't know if anybody can actually answer that question definitively. So it is something we're starting to look at. How do we answer that question? What are the mechanisms? And if there's other folks that are kind of asking the same thing or have those answers, I'd love to hear about it. Or if there's opportunities to partner up on, if it's larger surveys, if there's other ways to look at it.
Yeah.
Because I think we're kind of at that point where.
Well, I think that it's a really common question, and one of the advantages working with Doug is that he's got partners all over the globe. And New Zealand has done some work like that, and is in the process of doing some now. And the grant proposal that we proposed going in, that's exactly what we would be doing. So we have a lot of the same kinds of responses, through social media, and then the phone surveys. It's all self-reported, but actually getting the observations. What percent of them are actually cleaning before they go on the trail? Yeah. That's what the proposal is outlined to do, and that's kind of our next stage in the work.
Okay, one more question at the back.
Question and a comment. To the gentleman that just asked that question, the Leave No Trace Center last year published a study on that, one of their trail use signages and which was most effective and which people actually followed, so that was really interesting. I checked that out. But for you and me, I'm just curious if your program can be represented at the BSA National Jamboree this year or in the future. I think that would be a great.
Yeah, no, not that I know of. I have been participating in the local scouting activities. I have a big Weevils jamboree each summer, but I don't know of any that are going to the national.
Just a quick comment related to that. You're right, getting the kids is the way to change the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Is currently in
So give
progress.
me the materials and I'll take them because I'm gonna purchase them.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
All right, great.
Where
Let's make sure we get contact information so I follow up and get you the materials.
Thank you, Susan.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah, give us
Awesome.
1 second. Say something, Pat.
Can you see my screen, Chuck?
Yes, and we can hear you over the speakers. So,
Hear us.
all
I can hear
right.
you. Can you hear us?
Yes, we're good. If you want to get started, go for it.
Okay, I'll just introduce.
Yeah, awesome. Well,
Sorry, I'll just introduce you. Folks, if you could come back here, we're going to have our next presentation remotely, and it's on the Clean, Drain, Dry Initiative and Prevention Innovation. And we have Pat from Wildlife Forever and Edgar and Mark from CD3 to have this talk. So go ahead, fellas.
well, thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. Our apologies for not being able to attend and to join you there in beautiful Savannah, but we're happy to be able to present this morning, and wanted to talk with you about some of the work that we're doing here at Wildlife Forever, and some of the partnerships and some of the new and innovative ways that we're working to engage with the public for invasive species outreach and prevention. through the Clean, Drain, Dry message. And I'm going to just walk you through our 2016 annual report and kind of share with you some of the highlights of accomplishments that we achieved last year in the direction of the partnership, and some of the new things that we have coming forward in 2017 and beyond. And Ed Rutberg and Mark Applebacher from CD3 Station will talk about their new and innovative product and how that's integrated into the Clean, Drain, Dry message, which is shared throughout North America. So thanks again for your time today. So the Clean, Drain, Dry initiative was our work to really coalesce messaging and branding around a common denominator, and that's the best management practices. Those are the approved best management practices that everyone utilizes in a variety of formats. And so we saw this as an opportunity to really work with our partners and provide resources all around those action-based best management practices. And that's really what we're about, is getting the message into the audience, but being action-led and being positive. For so many years, we worked with other campaigns that were unsupported, and really felt by working with our partners that the message needs to evolve into something positive and something that everyone can do. And at the end of the day, they remember three simple words: clean, drain, and dry. And so we took that opportunity to really highlight this partnership, grow this partnership, and create an array of products and resources to help support the message and the resources that every agency or group can utilize. So here you can see some of the partners that we worked with just last year. Many of the federal agencies. The U.S. Forest Service has been our primary ally in invasive species prevention and outreach, along with the U.S. Forest Service, and of course our great partners at the Bureau of Land Management. And we do a tremendous amount of work through the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, and so we are grateful that that passed Congress this year, and we look forward to continuing our work throughout the Great Lakes and the Great Lakes states. But we work all throughout the country, and primarily with the BLM, we do a lot of outreach and education through game and fish publications in western states, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But at the bottom here, you can see how we work with so many different lake associations. And in Minnesota, we've got a neat opportunity where our legislature really felt that the power of invasive species prevention needed to go back to the people, and the people being the counties that implement AIS prevention efforts. And so they received $10 million through our legislature, and it's doled out through 80 to 92 various counties in Minnesota, and of which many lake associations then are a benefit to those funds to do localized outreach and education, from inspection stations, decontamination units, to putting up billboards and print ads and a whole host of products to really help drive that message to the public, but all through empowering the local people. And so that's really what our campaign is about, is empowering local people with consistent messaging and providing the tools to do that. So one of the ways that we empower people are through products and branded products of Clean, Drain, and Dry. And we've got a whole host of tools and materials that we've created. We've got a branded product catalog that has literally hundreds of different products in there, from keychains to decals, examples of different billboards that we can not only design and help assist with production of, but we can facilitate that service. And so not only are we helping state agencies and groups and partners with products and materials, but we're helping them with services and procuring those billboard places and those and radio spots and different mediums to help get that message out. And so we've got partners throughout the media, whether it's billboard vendors, television, radio, print, a whole host of partners that help give us, because we're a nonprofit, give us great rates, and then we pass those on to our partners who are trying to do the good work. One of the neat products that we did last year, if you can see here, we have a neat, we call it our AIS Command Center, our Clean, Drain, Dry command vehicle, and we've got some neat graphics and branding Clean, Drain, Dry proud, very boldly, and with some really innovative graphics. And one of our partners in northern Minnesota will be parading that through the county while they tow their AIS decontamination unit. So it's basically a mobile billboard, and they're very proud of it, and we're proud to work with them to help design that consistent message. So one of the ways that we really work to get the message out to the masses, and again, we work with our partners at the Forest Service and various other agencies who fund media campaign outreach, is we use television. Television reaches millions of people, and when done correctly can have a tremendous impact. And this past year, we worked with our friends at Wired to Fish. They're probably the leading authority when it comes to fishing content online and through social media, but they provide a tremendous amount of fishing content and have a huge following, tip segments on how to use various techniques for fishing and boating, but they're a media company that have a lot of television capacity. So we produced a neat video for a conference here in Minnesota. I was going to try and share that with you today. Chuck, are you getting any audio? Fishing content and have a huge following.
We can see it.
Segments and how they're a media company that has a lot of television capacity. So we produced a neat video for a conference here. It's not working too well, is it? Can you folks hear me?
We can hear you and we can see the video, but the other background noise we can't hear.
The background audio that was
Okay.
playing was you about 30 seconds ago, so I think you have the live stream running.
Yeah, shoot.
Be sure the live stream that.
If I go back, I wonder if I can, is it this one here? This is a really good video. I'm going to back it up. How's that? Can you hear it now?
The last glaciation blessed
Yes.
our Minnesota home, abundance of water resources. These waters have shaped generations of Minnesotans, passionate users and stewards of the environment. The introduction and proliferation of aquatic species has and is continuing to change aquatic environments and how we and nature coexist with them. responsibility of all of us. Let's work together to hand down a healthy tomorrow for future generations to protect and enjoy.
Did the audio turn out okay on that?
It was okay. Next time we'll play it here live in the room.
Yeah, I apologize for that if it were a little quiet. Let's see if I can get back here. Apologize, we'll get this right here. So we left off with television, and that was one video that we produced for a conference here in Minnesota. But part of the work that we do, Clean Drain Dry initiative, is using tip segments and commercials and PSAs aired on television networks. And so this past year, we worked with a number of different television programs, and we reached about 60 million impressions just using television. And so we know the message hits the audience, and when we present that consistent Clean Drain Dry message, it really drives that positive behavior change. And as a result of the work that we've done, we're award winning. We've won several Telly Awards last year, and we're really proud of the work that we were able to do through the partnership. And again, these resources are available to anyone that's looking to use television and public service announcements, and we've got a whole host of those types of products available. Another product or another medium that we use is outdoor media, billboards. Everybody, whether you love them or hate them, billboards make a big impression. And this past year, we posted 31 different highway billboards throughout the country with various partners. And again, presenting that consistent Clean Drain Dry message. And so we use highway billboards targeting lakebound traffic areas, and we also use gas pump toppers where folks, busy gas stations or busy bait shops, where folks obviously have to stop to fuel up before hitting the lake. So we've got a variety of tools and resources to help partners get that message out about Clean Drain and Dry. And we also use print ads in popular game and fish publications, Great Lakes Boating, where I work with the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. And we do a lot of work with the Bureau of Land Management in Western Game and Fish publications, Alaska Sportsman's Magazine, California Sportsman's Magazine, really trying to reiterate that message in a variety of formats to a variety of users, but keeping that consistent message of Clean Drain and Dry. And whether you're a fly angler, whether you're an ATV or backpacker or even a hiker, that Clean Drain Dry message is still relevant. Another exciting tool that we use to do that is we use geofencing. Geofencing is a pretty neat technology where once you enter a certain geographical parameter, pin area, an ad will pop up on your mobile device. And many of you have probably already encountered that, where you get close to a certain town or city and you start getting pop-up ads. Well, that's geofencing. And so we've taken the Clean Drain Dry message, utilizing that technology to really target specific lake-bound areas. In a project in Minnesota, we're targeting a specific county and specific watershed, so you can really tailor that message to the watershed, to that specific lake, and even that specific AIS threat using geofencing, mobile ads, and have content that's relevant to the local area. Another thing that we utilize quite a bit is social media. We do some Facebook, but one of our new and innovative products that we have are augmented reality enhanced boat ramp signs. So we created the Clean Drain Dry app, and the app uses augmented reality, very similar to, if you all remember the craze of Pokemon Go about a year ago or so. Everybody was walking around with their heads down and their phone in their face and trying to chase Pokemon. Well, the CD2 app uses that similar technology where if you download the app, and it's free, and you scan one of our new boat ramp signs, a video about AIS prevention will play right in the palm of your hand. And so we can tailor the message through video to that specific lake, to that specific state, whatever the issue may be. But we can really customize and tailor the message through enhanced graphics. You can see the new graphic here on the left. For years and years and years, we've known that signage at access points is the #1 way people get their message. There's multiple surveys out there that support that. So we're simply taking that theory and enhancing signage so we can use that app. So we're launching a new project in St. Louis County this spring, so we'll have more updates on that as things evolve. But in addition to some of those tools, we host a ton of different events through our partners, and really working to engage youth through the Clean Drain Dry initiative. And so we work with National Professional Angler Associations, FLW, BASS, and a whole host of professional angling groups who put on seminars and presentations, fishing presentations to kids and communities all across North America. And we support them, those anglers, with messaging and with tools to really help, again, with that consistent messaging. We've got a great little youth education program called State Fish Art. We just announced yesterday our national winners. You can go online at statefishart.org to learn more about that. But we've got a great invasive species lesson plan that we adopted to the Ontario Federation of Hunters and Anglers that has the invasive species message. And it's a great little curriculum, and we've got a whole segment all about invasive species for kids through that program. And it's a free program, so we encourage any youth that you have or know about, or educator networks, to participate with that. So finally, one of the other projects that we work with here at Wildlife Forever is we do a tremendous amount of field work and invasive species eradication. So this page here on our annual report highlights some of the partners that we have, and again, some of the work that we do on the ground. So our program isn't just a branded campaign. It's really implementing the BMPs, and it's really taking it to the people and taking it all the way down to the ground of invasive species removal. So we're really proud of the partnership that's led from government agencies to other nonprofits, and we're looking to expand that even this year. That's why I brought on Ed and Mark Applebacher with TD3 Station. They've got a new innovative product that'll be hitting the market this summer, and I'd love for them to talk a little bit about the TD3 cleaning station. And thank you for your time, and hopefully there's a little bit of time after the talk for questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Does anyone have questions? Yes, Doug.
Just my ignorance, what's the connection between Clean Drain Dry and Stop Aquatic Hitchhikers?
Could you explain the connection between Clean Drain Dry and Stop Aquatic Hitchhikers?
Sure. Well, Clean Drain Dry is supported by very much similar to Stop Aquatic Hitchhiker, in that we utilize that same message. But where Clean Drain Dry really comes in is that we're putting the best management practices forward, and we're not trying to implement a brand that you may or may not agree with. Some people say the Stop Aquatic Hitchhiker message is negative. They wanted something fresh, and so we really listened to the people and really created Clean Drain Dry initiative as an opportunity to engage anyone in all sides of invasive species prevention, whether you're a government agency or a lake association simply wanting to get the messaging out. And so it's really the message of the people that we feel Clean Drain Dry has its benefit. And again, working with partners, we've got a tremendous amount of products and tools to help get that message on the ground. But we work very closely with our allies at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to support their message and their work. And Sue didn't mention it, but we also work with Play Clean Go and trying to support their efforts as well, because we're in this together. And no matter what side of the aisle you're on or what affiliation you're associated with, we want to work with everybody. And we feel Clean Drain Dry. If you look around all throughout the country, you can really see that every state's using it, and we're simply here as a resource to provide support for that message. So we want to help everybody.
Okay, great. Well, we'll move on to Edgar's presentation then. Edgar, are you there? Thank you,
Yeah,
Pat.
sure am. And sure, I go as efficiently as possible to keep us on time here. And so, I'm using the phrase catching a unicorn. I worked at multiple state agencies, and we always talked about private, public, nonprofit partnerships as kind of this unicorn. And I want to talk about then how we've essentially caught the unicorn in the project that we're working on. So just to give a quick outline here, just give a little bit about my background and what I envision in catching the unicorn, and then going through the case study that we've worked with here with Wildlife Forever. So as I said, the unicorn is this mystical thing that's really difficult to catch, and in state agencies we always wanted those partnerships with the private sector. And as I have left state agencies and joined the private sector, I really took that with me as a key for success in many issues. So I see it really as a three-legged stool. We obviously have the private sector, the public sector, and then nonprofits to really get to the point where we can catch that unicorn. So I think those keys to success, if you look at what different areas that those different sectors can tackle. If you look at the public sector or education, really we're looking, with science, BNPs, outreach and education, and again, also looking for participation in partnerships like this. In the private sector, we can do things that the others can't. Vision when it comes to entrepreneurism, execution, and I think it really is on the private sectors to seek stakeholder input, whether or not that is different governmental agencies, nonprofits, etc. And then nonprofits are in a unique position as well, as they can really be a bridge builder, conduct outreach and education, and they can really advocate more than state agencies can for often behavior change. So looking at aquatic invasive species as a case study, in Minnesota, the message here, clean, drain, dry, and then we add dispose, particularly when it comes to bait. By law, that is something that the state DNR here requires. So my background, I have a PhD in natural resource science, really focused on behavior change. And so the questions that came before really resonate with me, and this is really distilling my PhD down to one slide. So we have a message that is out there, and it's cleaning, draining, and drying. So we're getting that a lot from the DNR. We're getting it from obviously Wildlife Forever at the LGU level. And so what that catalyzes is the hope that people plan to act, that they choose then to clean, drain, and dry their boat. But when it comes to the actual execution of the behavior, there's often barriers to that execution. So people are not necessarily cleaning, draining, and drying. And so what we focus on in this project is looking at those barriers to behavior and how can we help facilitate those barriers in a way that we have an uptick in adoption of BNP. So as discussed, Wildlife Forever's done a great job. This is not to repeat their messaging, but they've worked a lot with cleaning, draining, and drying. We've taken that into account and thinking about now national best management practices on how we want to catalyze behavior. So we see behavioral barriers in a few different areas. One is we have high pressure, high heat water decontamination here in Minnesota, and that's a common practice throughout the country. The problem is there's limited adoption. In the main barrier to that is simply cost. To have the trained staff, to have the equipment, etc. You don't see high pressure, high heat water decontamination at every lake all the time. As well as the efficacy for that type of decontamination really focuses on those zebra mussel villagers. In the absence of high pressure, high heat decon, we have no best management practices resources right at the landing outside of what boaters might bring with them. So we have an issue of in low light conditions, cleaning the boat and the trailer is difficult. There's difficulty in reaching under the boat, and people just generally do not have the tools to execute BMPs. So what we are looking to do in this project is really give people the tools to execute those behaviors. And we're allowing it to akin of when you invite people over to your home, you don't just have them wear your muddy boots into your house. You put a doormat out for people to clean their boots, as was previously discussed in Play Clean Go, to enter your home and do so. And so we are trying to be the doormat at the water's edge, if you will, or the boot cleaning station. So obviously Pat talked a lot about the partnership with Wildlife Forever. They have a passion for AIS, hunting and fishing, which aligns very closely with ours as a general benefit corporation. They're doing cutting edge outreach and education, and they have the capacity and interest. So what we went through here in Minnesota via funding of the Initiative Foundation and the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation was an iterative design process that was really driven by stakeholders. And so this was our first design, which came with some assistance from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency as well. As you can see, it's really a large garbage can. The hair blower that we had on looked a little bit militant, needless to say. And as we went through this iterative design process, we got feedback from key stakeholders statewide and at the national level to help further define the product we developed. This was the second design where we really honed in on the tools that we were looking for, meaning lights to look in the boat, underneath the boat and trailer, air compressor to help dry out lines, vacuum to help get debris, weeds, water, etc. And then a series of low-tech tools that are tethered by cable in the center. These have changed a little bit. We have a longer now 3-foot brush, grabbing tool, as well as a universal plug wrench to help people pull the plugs on their boat if they have forgotten to bring their own wrench. So based on additional feedback from stakeholders, this is where we are at with the station. So you've seen a big change from here to here, and that really was driven by stakeholders in the AIS community. And people brought up before of needing to measure behavior change. Well, our tool is connected to what's called the Internet of Things. And so every time you press a button on to turn the air compressor on, to turn the lights on, to turn the vacuum on, anytime you pull one of the cable connected tools, we have sensors and counters to help collect that behavioral data, as well as sensors within the pavement to understand when people are coming to the station, if they're going past the station, how long they're staying at the station. So this data is all fed through the cloud into an online platform for natural resource managers, so they can really get an idea of their return on investment as in regards to how many people are using the station. If we can track behavior changes over time, we can also track things like how full the vacuum tank is, so that we know when to maintenance, and if the machine isn't working, to send someone out to it. So really trying to keep that behavior change and metrics at the forefront of our thought, so that we can understand to what extent we are having behavior change. So looking to the next steps, we are installing 5 pilots here in Minnesota this summer. We're going to be kicking the tires on the design again, coming back with stakeholders then this fall based on what we saw as far as use. And we will be bringing it then to commercialization here this following fall. So hopefully we were under time here. I hopefully didn't go over too much, but want to give a quick thank you to Wildlife Forever, Initiative Foundation, NIFWIF, our project partners, the Pollution Control Agency, DNR, and Sea Grant. Put it up to questions, and certainly that's my contact information. So if we don't have time for questions, feel free to contact me either at email or phone if you have any additional questions.
Thank you very much, Edgar. I think we have time for a question if anyone has question for Edgar? Yes, Jeremy.
I'm just curious how much the station costs.
How much does the station cost, was the question.
Sure. Right now, our stations cost $18,000. Now, keeping in mind that this is the beginning here of our commercialization process, that number we're hoping to shift down as far as cost is concerned, but that's just shooting from the hip right now at where we at our current cost for the first 5.
I have a quick question. Do they require electricity? Are they solar powered, or how do they operate?
Sure. So yes, some of them, we're doing 2 different styles of pilots this summer. One is hardwired to the electrical grid. Another is an off-grid unit with solarization. And we are looking to collect a lot of data this summer so we can optimize the tools that we're using so that we can, based on usage and the solar potential, really make good recommendations on what to employ as far as technologies are concerned for an off-grid unit.
Great. Well, thank you very much again, Edgar and Pat.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time. Have a great conference.
Thank you.
Okay, we're just going to take a quick minute to load up the next presentation. So I'd like to introduce Isabel. And Isabel's with Canavio in Mexico, and she's the invasive species coordinator, folks. And she's going to talk about Mexico's outreach efforts.
Which one?
It's
The one today. It's not on there. Still got much. Do you need a mic? Do you need a microphone?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Hey, folks.
Yep, no one can hear me.
Isabel's going to take over with her presentation on Mexico's outreach efforts.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Is this thing working? Okay. First of all, I want to apologize. My presentation decided to self-destruct this morning. So this is what I could recover, so it's not going to take 30 minutes. So you'll probably be happy because we're going on a break, but yeah. And also I want to say there's loads of people contributing to this presentation and loads of institutions, and I lost the logos. So they should be in there, so again, sorry. How does this work? So Patricia told you about what we're doing within the invasive species strategy in Mexico. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about the efforts on boosting communication. This doesn't work. It's okay. So over there. So on boosting communication, education, and awareness within, different parts of the Mexican society. So I'm going to talk a bit about what we're doing with the government and decision makers, the productive and commercial sectors, especially with aquarium fish. Something we're doing with the general public, and the rest with what we're doing with children. So for decision makers and technical staff, we've really focused on building capacities and on also in telling them about the issue of invasive alien species, because it's a very poorly known issue, and I think their impacts are really underestimated by decision makers. So it's really important for us to keep working with them. And also, while some of them keep changing, so we keep working with them again. So one of the things we did was these 2 incident command system workshops. One was in 2013, and the other was in 2016. We had 70 people participating. They were really interested in taking this thing further. Georgia mentioned that we're going to have a sort of a dry run or a pilot exercise in the field this year. So hopefully, that will do it. We had another workshop as well last year, which was capacity building for government staff involved in water issues and how to deal with aquatic invasive weeds. And again, we had 22 participants on that one. That's Silvia from Conavio also participating in the exercise. And well, we had the workshop for legislators that also Georgia and Patricia mentioned. This was important because at the moment there's a new proposal for a new law, which is a law on biodiversity that's being discussed in Congress. So we really wanted to focus on legislators and let them know about invasive species and how important it is to not only to include the issue, but include it properly, because a bad legislation can do a lot of damage. So we had, after the workshop, we produced a bulletin for everyone to read, and we're working on a book for them. We also had, the journalist workshop. That was interesting. So we were in Valle de Bravo, which is a bit north of Mexico, I think, of Mexico City. We had 22 media participants from all kind of media, from magazines, TV, radio, etc. So basically every day was like being mobbed, like that picture over there. So anything you said, you had a ton of mobile phones on top of you. But it was really good. I think it was important for them to understand invasive species, and it was also important for us to be able to communicate properly the issue, because I think we take it for granted. We give a lot of talks and we take for granted that people are really understanding what we want to say. And then some people started, asking us questions, like this lady who said, "Oh, but nothing is being done, we're going to die, and I'm really depressed." And I'm like, no, there's a lot of things being done. So it's really important, it was an important exercise for us as well, as, in order to communicate science. This finished yesterday, thank God. So we had a diploma. It's a diploma course. It's a 3-month diploma course for field staff and government staff. It's the first of its kind in Spanish, so it has 14 sections. And we go through everything. So what's an invasive species, the main impacts of the different groups, from virus to mammals, what's being done in protected areas, what's being done in phytosanitary or zoosanitary fields, legislation. We tell them about the importance of commerce within the and trade for invasive species. So far we've had 98 students, and we even had participants from Peru and Costa Rica. So we're trying to find a way of running this more often, or making it so anyone can come in at any time and just do it. But at the moment, the invasive species group in Conavio is running it, so that's why it had set dates. But I think it's working and people are happy, and we've had even heads of departments from the Ministry of Environment taking this course, 2 field staff, so it's been really good. And that was a grant actually from the US Fish and Wildlife Service. This is a case study that we've really worked on. It's the environmental fish problem in Mexico. So I think one of my colleagues in their talks told you that Morelos, which is that state that's in the in orange, in the center of Mexico, they're the main aquatic fish producers for Mexico. So they export, but mainly it's for local, national trade. The problem is there's been escapes and lots of them. So we have these 2 data where for Morelos, that's a fish fauna composition in 2000. That's the data from 2010. So you can see that over half of the fish found in rivers or natural ecosystem in Morelos is exotic. And then the other one, that's more recent, that's a whole central Mexico, but again, there's a whole chunk of exotic fish already within the ecosystem. So we're really focusing on them as a source of escapes. But we don't want to, they feel a bit threatened by us, I think. So we're trying to work with them. And also, the problem is that Mexico City is the main market and is really close to Morelos. So you can see there's about 40 million fish produced at least last year. So it's a huge, a very important economic activity. So we've worked with them. We've been working with them, I think, since 2007. We've given them workshops. We've visited the farms. And when I say we, it's the University of Nuevo León. Many of you know Roberto Mendoza, who's on the picture over there. He's one of the main, lecturers and teachers for all of us. We've worked with authorities, with the National Commission of Fisheries, the Institute of Fisheries. That's one of the farms. That's this lady over there. Mrs. Perdomo. She has a cooperative farm for women in Morelos. They produce a lot of fish. And we had workshops on biosecurity, HACCP, risk assessment, but also on invasive species. And I have had to go and talk to them several times. And I think one of the things we've learned there is they were really wary because we kept focusing on examples of invasive species in aquatic species. So I think they thought that the only problem was aquatic species and they were the problem. So in the end, I ended up opening more, a wider spectrum in my talks. And, there's invasive mammals, there's invasive birds and insects and everything. And then they got it. They really said, okay, we're working on this. So there's a document called, it was made by University of Nuevo León, but also involving them, which is how to modernize the Mexican industry of aquaculture fish to include all these measures. So we're still working. Some of them are already implementing the measures. It's a work in progress, and it's slow, but we're getting there. And one of the results there was, we didn't know there was an association of ornamental fish producers in Mexico City, and they came to knock on Conavio's door saying, listen, we have this material, we want to print it, do you have any resources to help us print it? We didn't have to do anything to the material, it was already really well done, and they're really worried about their production methods. It's a bit different for them than in Morelos. Morelos is like those open ponds, and in Mexico City it's in the house. Basically they're houses, and they have a room full of fish tanks. So for them it's easier to implement biosecurity methods. But they've asked first for material, and they've been giving talks, they're giving outreach activities to public. They even have this proposal, so all the bags where the fish, the fish are transported in plastic bags. So all the bags would have their, this is an exotic species, do not release it, which I thought was quite neat. So we're working with them. I think Patricia said this, we're producing materials for primary school teachers. That's within the GEF project. And that's material produced by this Fondo de Comunicación y Educación Ambiental with the help of Conavio. And we want to do one for terrestrials as well. This was was an interesting exercise. These were students from the National University. They were doing a course on communicating science, and they decided to do something on invasive species. They had no idea what invasive species were. But the funny thing is they went and did interviews to public. And again, is this whole perception thing. Do you know what an exotic species is? And they're like, well, it's something really weird, or it's something really pretty, or something has lots of colors. So it's really, again, it brought us home the importance of really communicating what we want to say. So they designed this infography, and again, Conavio and the GEF project gave them money to produce it. So this is in print, I think, now. And then what we do in Conavio as well is we have our invasive species webpage. We have all the lists, definitions, all the publications. I'll tell you a bit. Something about tools, about biosecurity tools, HACCP and risk assessment. And this is the information requests I had until Friday. So this year we've had so far 62 information requests. So it looks like we're going to top last year. So the people is really interested in invasive species. They keep asking us for information. And what we're trying to do, even if these requests are completely random, so we cannot predict what's going to come, and we get them from, I found an alien in my garden, is this an alien? And they sent this picture, to something really serious, like what are, the invasive species in Mexico or something. So we're trying to focus our system into what they are, where they are, and what are the impacts, which is what they're mostly asked. We have a lot of species information sheets. Some of Conavio's information is already in the Encyclopedia of Life. And I mentioned in my other talk that we're working on standardizing the vocabularies to work on Plinian core. So everything goes out through our different web pages, like Encyclopedia up there. So, this is some of the examples we've done on publications in Conavio. So one of the most important is the blue one over there, who's an invasive aquatic species for Mexico. That's our baseline. It was published, I think it was 3 years ago, And we're working on the terrestrial invasive species baseline currently. We have, well, risk assessment. That was a trinational risk assessment that was done with the CEC. We have an exotic species book. We have a risk assessment on, how do you call them? Oh well, that thing.
What we have for supper though.
Yeah, that, exactly. That shrimpy thing, I don't remember the name. But well, and we also have, this is for general public. So we have a magazine called Biodiversitas, and these are small articles for, general public. They're usually 2 or 3 pages as well. And actually, we had one on lorry-carried fish that was very popular, and we don't have any magazines left, which is probably a first of that edition. So everything is electronic. We have an image database as well, and at the moment they're tagging the images. I don't know how many images they have, but I looked for the word exotic in our database, and I have over 300 hits. 3,000 hits. So we're building that. Actually, images, it's something we don't have much of from Mexico. We also, social media. We don't handle the social media. We have an area who does it, but they're always very keen on invasives. So we like that. And also, they're helping us, the social media and communications department. We have a big webpage for children, and many of the bits of the webpage, sometimes we don't even know they add this. But I think we've done our work right with them, because they're adding the information correctly, so that's really cool. So for example, they have the difference between a native species and an exotic, and also between an exotic species and an invasive species, because we really, told them about that they're not the same. There's a section on how do we damage ecosystems, and they have all these examples. So within a different ecosystem, they have 1 or 2 examples of what's happening. And with within the Gulf and Caribbean, they have the lionfish example. And they have a whole section on pets. I love that cat. I know I have cats, but this cat really looks annoyed. So, but it's basically, what's not a pet. And within the pet section, there's a whole section on what are the invasive pets, and you have the 4 where the main problems at the moment, which is Argentinian parakeet, the cats, and the lorry-carried fish, and the terrapins, red-ear sliders. We have a serious, one as well in our webpage, which is the 10 actions you should do in order not to move invasives around. And I think, that's it. I told you, not 30 minutes.
Oh, you're right on track. Awesome.
So we have any
questions for?
It wasn't really clear to me, but maybe it should have been.
Maybe it wasn't.
We've talked about how in the United States it's difficult to get respect and funding for outreach from government. Have you had that, or is it encouraged overall? Are you given a good portion of your budget for outreach?
I think, Conabio has, a dedicated staff just for outreach, because one of the main activities in Conabio is outreach. So we want people to know about biodiversity. So yes, there is a dedicated staff. Actually, some of them are up there in the special thanks. So we have designers, we have communicators, we have, lots of people. So yes, we do have, I don't know if it's respect. We hope we have respect, but we do have dedicated staff and resources for that.
Isabel, I'm interested by your training for the media. So my first question is, how did you select, or how did you get the media to attend, and how was that selection process done?
So do I have to repeat the question? Yeah. So it's about the media, and how did we select the people to attend the media workshop. We worked with our facilitator, which was, he's a specialist on media. We also worked with Conabio's media people, and basically an invitation was sent out with a questionnaire to loads of media, and then based on, what they had worked on before, and also their interests and everything, and the kind of media it was, I think there was a selection. Because yes, I think there were more than 22 people who wanted to attend, and we hope to try, to do it again because this is really important.
And then have you seen, since that, a positive result in how your invasives are portrayed in the media, or have you tried to measure that at all?
A positive result or a measurement of what the media or the results of the workshop. The workshop was 2 weeks ago, so not yet. But there's been a lot of documents published already or articles, and we. At least in Conavio, we keep getting emails or communication from the media to ask for clarifications. So I think they're working on producing, their products, and we'll see more soon. Okay, you, and then you. Yeah.
Do you see species from very far apart sections of Mexico becoming invasive, say from, Baja to the eastern edge? Or any other situation where it's actually in your country and native to one piece but not the other?
So do we have native species that are behaving as invasive in other part of the country? Yes, we have, within our invasive species list, we have about 400 of those species. One example is a red-eared slider. So it's native, the subspecies, the invasive subspecies is native to the north of Mexico, a really small chunk. And it's actually in our protected, they are protected species list. But the ones who are coming in for trade and for pets and everything, they're being released all over the country, and they are behaving as invasive. So we have that. We have several fish, for example, as well. So, yeah. Georgia?
No, it was just a clarifying comment regarding your question. We did a call for the journalists and this direct invitation. And in the call we put that it is a requirement for them to do an article afterwards. So we said, okay, you get a free participation, we invite you, it's part of this, event was part of the Jeff project. So we said we are between Jeff and Conavio, so we pay everything, but the requirement is that you write an article or you do a radio capsule or TV spot or whatever on invasive species. So that was a requirement from the beginning.
Yeah, I was interested in the course that you were offering with the 98 students. Is that the equivalent of a college degree then, or a technical degree?
So it's a diploma course equivalent to a degree? No, we do have the backup of our exotic invasive species network, which are 3 universities: University of Nuevo León, Universidad del Mar, and University of Baja California. So because they are academics and they're part of the course, they agreed to give us an academic, backup. Credits, yeah. So it works for the, for government staff. And also something we're working on is in Mexico, and I guess in Canada and the US as well, staff have to be trained constantly, and there are specific courses to be trained on. So we want to put this in the list of training courses for the government, so it's valid for them as well. So, okay.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Okay, so it's break time, and if you could be back promptly at 11 so we can start the last session, that would be awesome.
James, you gotta help me out with the name of your group, it's too long. GSAR, okay, Gulf and South Atlantic Regional Panel on Aquatic Invasive Species, right? Ish, okay. So they're back joining us for this last session. For this session, we decided to bring in Bonnie Harper Lohr, who's retired from the Federal Highway Administration, to kind of give us a little bit of a history lesson. This would have been nice to have done on Tuesday, but we didn't have time in the agenda. And so as we move forward and figure out what we do next with this conference, we're going to look back a little bit, and so we'll turn it over to Bonnie.
It doesn't work, so I'm going to toggle it. We already went through this. Don't
All right, whatever.
Right, should I use the mic?
Probably now that, yeah.
I just remembered I have handouts. Once a teacher, always a teacher. But I also learned as a teacher, you never hand out the handouts until the end, or everybody gets distracted. I taught at both first grade, high school, and college level. Believe me, it's true of all levels. Okay, we'll figure this out. I am technically challenged. I always have been. I apologize. So originally I was going to do a wrap-up, and I took really good notes so I could highlight some of the wonderful things that I've been hearing this week, and there are so many of them. I'm going to let you rely on your own notes when you go back home to figure out how to summarize what this event has been. I'd like you to know a little bit about how this began. I'm a plant person, okay, so I'm a terrestrial invasive kind of person. Although I started out as a native plant person. And invasives definitely hijacked my career. And I am retired, but I'm afraid I still drive down the road and I see invasives every day of my life. So it's really hard to walk away. So if you think that you're having a short career and going to retire, this is lifetime work that you are doing. You just need to know that. We began back in 2002 with the Tucson conference because we were fortunate enough to get some funding for it. And it was an invitation only get together, and we limited it to 100 people. The reason we did that was we wanted to gather together all the experts that we could find from Canada, Mexico, and the United States. We wanted them to be from the federal level, state level, local level. We wanted them to include policymakers, practitioners, and scientists, a real mix. And we saw to it that we had a really packed agenda, the kind that you really want to, like we've had this week. You want to sit there and really learn from each other, and that's what happened. But we carefully chose that first 100 because, well, all of us federal agencies, the FICMANU group of 16 agencies who put this together well, it wasn't in our job description to do any of what we were doing. We were kind of renegades in government, and fortunately we had supportive supervisors who let us do what we did. And we wanted to find those kinds of people in Canada and Mexico as well. So perhaps together, all three countries could be proactive and get things done. So in my talk, I'm going to mention two more steps that I think we need to talk about. And I always do my presentations long before I get on the plane, so had I heard the Mexican presentation about reducing the spread, I think that would have been a better word than stop the spread, because reducing the spread of invasives, of course, is more realistic at this point. Before I tell you about weeds across borders, I have to bring a weed warning from Minnesota. This is when good ideas go bad. And because there's so much interest in pollinators across the continent, I think this could impact all of you, or this general idea. The federal government has provided pollinator support for farmers across the country, and in Minnesota farmers jumped on the idea and ordered the pollinator mix to be planted in their fields last summer. It was planted, it turned out it was contaminated with Palmer amaranth. Suddenly we had 13 farm sites that were contaminated. Fortunately, it was actually the seed vendor himself who found the amaranth and had the courage to go tell the State Department of Agriculture. They have now fined him for it, but it's all good. I understand there's still some lawsuits in progress. So this is when, trying to do some good, planting pollinator habitat, but not checking the seed mixes can go very, very wrong. And I'm seeing seed mixes across the country that are being suggested for plantings in farm fields, for conservation plantings, for planting in people's backyards that are going to come back to bite us. So they won't be amaranth that's in those mixes, but some other bad actors as well. So in Minnesota, fortunately, they spotted it right away, and they think that eradication will be possible. I first found out about Palmer amaranth when I was at the 2012 Weeds Across Border meeting in Cancun. And I learned there that, of course, it is the bane of cotton growers' existence here in the South, and that it is really a tough one to fight. So when it landed in Minnesota, of course, we thought that was a southern problem. That wouldn't come, that wouldn't be a northern problem. Obviously, these seeds have a great range of tolerance, and they're doing just fine in Minnesota. So watch out for that one. It can sneak in. So we began back in 1994 with a memorandum of understanding among 16 federal partners. This was unprecedented stuff. We didn't usually talk to one another. We didn't talk to other departments within our own agency, let alone reach out and talk to others. So this was pretty impressive for the time. One of the first things that FCMA did was to write a national strategy. This was an agency-written strategy that was spread around the country, and people grabbed onto it because this was the first time they'd gotten in their hands something like this about plant management. This pulling together effort was really important. In fact, it was because of pulling together that we got the money to start the very first conference. We went out across the country and held national weed summits. We invited stakeholders from industry, from different levels of government, and following that, as a result, we wrote a weed fact book, or action on the ground, that people could take. And again, this fact book became a really hot seller across the country. I think they are considering doing a follow-up, a new status report of what's going on. In 1999, FCMA was invited to the table to write the executive order on invasive plants. There were only 2 other people at the table. One was from the aquatic nuisance species side of things, and one was from the Department of Interior. So we got to write the executive order that created the National Invasive Species Council. And a disclaimer, by the way, I'm now an advisor to that council. See, you can't escape invasive species issues. You get drawn into it, and there you are. So, as I said, we created it in 2002. But before I get into that, I want to share with you the very best partnership I have ever seen. Because Weeds Across Borders is all about partnerships. At least that's my feeling, that it should end up in partnerships. This is the best partnership I'd ever seen in the United States, and still to this day, because it involved a federal agency, a state agency, and a local agency. This one was in a county in Oregon, Malheur County. The size of the county, 3,686 acres. That's a lot of responsibility for one county government. Also, much of the land in the county was owned by BLM, the Bureau of Land Management. And finally, of course, I was working with highways, so all the state highways crisscrossed through this county, and they were trying to manage weeds as well. So the BLM person sat down with the state and local and said, okay, we've got to work together. The BLM supplied the sprayer, the Department of Transportation that lime green truck in the background, and the county a driver. And that driver spent long seasons of going out and treating with chemical, of course, all the spot spraying efforts he could. And they found out at the end of the day, or the year, really, they got 10 times as much coverage teaming together as they did individual efforts. So, I mean, you would hope that kind of consolidation of resources with a plan in hand could get that kind of result. And they spot sprayed private sector property too. If a rancher had some pepperweed or Medusa head or Scots thistle or whatever the weed of the day was on his property, the driver would stop and ask him, do you want me to spot spray that? That's really crossing a line without any written agreement. This was all done on a handshake. But I was out there to see the project, and a person on a big horse with a 10-gallon hat flagged us down, put his head in the window and said, this is the best thing you guys have ever done. What he meant was, from his perspective as a rancher, this was the best thing government had ever done in his neck of the woods. So we not only got rid of weeds, we made friends as well. So I've been thinking about this for a long time, as most of you in the room have been, and I think of all of the different federal, state, and local level organizations and agencies that are working on invasive species, especially weeds. This graphic shows only weeds, thanks to the Forest Service and Mike Elmini. That was drawn to show you all of the relationships and potential partnerships that already exist in the United States. Do you see how hard it is to sort all this out? This is really a complex issue. So, just this past December, as an advisor to the National Invasive Species Council, I was one of the people that helped draft a recommendation to the National Invasive Species Council asking for one thing: dedicate one person to put together contacts for the federal, state, and local levels who are doing not just weed work, but all invasive species work, and put out that directory so we all can find each other and form partnerships. So often we don't know who owns what, and we don't know whom to contact once we do, when we want to work together. So hopefully the US will start putting this directory together. I think Canada is already starting a directory. Did I hear that earlier this week? Maybe not. Well, please do get started. And Mexico will do it too, I'm sure. And we could have an international directory because, of course, weeds don't respect political boundaries. So that's the first thing in terms of next steps that I think is relatively easy. If you had a dedicated person in each country, it would take a month or two or three, but it could be done very easily. So in 2004, we met Weeds Across Borders in Minnesota, And at the end of the meeting, like this meeting, there was an ad hoc group led by Francisco Garcia Espinosa. He said, wait a minute. And so we all went back to our seats. And Francisco brought up the very most important point. Yes, we want to take next steps. We want to do more. We want to partner with the 3 countries. But we have trouble getting to this meeting. As important as we think it is, there is no official support for this meeting. So what could we do? And so I volunteered to investigate and see what we could do. And I contacted the Trilateral, the Fish and Wildlife Service Trilateral, and said, hey, would you sponsor us and give us support? And the Trilateral says, we don't do invasives. In 2004, they didn't. They were behind, what we were all doing at the time. And the CEC, I asked them, can we not be a part of the environmental side of all this and see what we can do? And they said, no, we're really not interested in invasives. Again, we were ahead of the curve asking for support. So when in 2008 we met, I had nothing good to report except one thing. The only answer I had found was a memorandum of understanding. That's one way of doing international agreements. I went to the State Department. They gave me a model for how to write a memorandum of understanding. Believe me, this wasn't in my job description at all. And I brought a copy of it along for each and every one of you, okay? It's on the front table. But I hadn't had time to brief everybody who came to the meeting, especially the federal partners in each of the countries. And so we talked about it, and people thought, yeah, we want to do it, but we don't know really, because they hadn't gotten to see it. So how could they endorse it? And none of the people there had the authority to sign anything like that. Just as here, we don't have the authority to sign it. But I was promised by the State Department that if people wanted to get this done, that all they had to do was take a document that we all agreed on, all 3 countries agreed on, bring it to them. They would simply walk to the Canadian embassy, to the Mexican embassy, and get it signed in a day or 2. It is that easy to get a memorandum of understanding done. So keep that in mind. In Banff, the 2008 meeting, we talked about it. What we agreed on was what is written in front of you, that bottom line, we need to prevent and control among the 3 countries, and we need to pull together. And everybody who was at that meeting signed it, and we named it the Banff Accord. It was something we all worked on. So that is an outline of the Memorandum of Understanding that's on the front table. It is 4 pages long. That's all it takes for an international agreement, 4 pages, but signed by the ambassadors of each country. So, next steps. One way of doing it would be to put together a task force. We had a task force in 2008, but they couldn't get it done. We had 2 people from Mexico, 2 from the United States, and 2 from Canada to review the Memorandum of Understanding. We chose some of the busiest people in invasive species, and it therefore did not get done. What I'm going to ask you is to let's start getting the idea going again. And I think there's a relatively easy way because of this is, excuse me, the Memorandum of Understanding is already known in Washington. The National Invasive Species Council already knows about it. Why don't you each take a copy and read it, just 4 pages, and see what it is that you'd like to add or what it is you'd like to change. And I will personally compile all of your comments and then give them to the National Invasive Species Council and say, hey, here's a start. This is what people are thinking in 2017. They think it's doable. They think it's needed because we need to be able to have these kinds of meetings. We need to have ongoing discussions between meetings. We need to do joint research together, joint control efforts together. It's all spelled out in that memorandum of understanding. So please take a copy. I think I included my email. Oh no.
The previous slide.
Thank you. My email is bonnielore@comcast.net. Take a copy, email me, and I will take the time out of my busy retired life, and it is busy, to put it all together and try to move it forward through official channels so it gets someplace this time. Continental cooperation is needed. It's our continent. Let's take care of it together.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Bonnie. I think. So, moving forward, next steps. We created this. And I think Patricia's gonna come up and tell us. Oh, and Georgia and Isabel. All three of y'all come up.
To receive it?
Yeah. And
It's
Terry.
heavy. That's why I need 3 people carrying it. It's a heavy thing. It's difficult.
You're gonna be on YouTube, you have to go over here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not gonna be.
And you need to put that on. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Chuck. I think it's a great, this forum is a great opportunity to strengthen the collaboration in North America. So we'll do our best to take you to a nice place as Savannah. And as you heard from the meeting in Cancun, we still don't know where we're going to have the meeting, but we hope to have you all there. You are very welcome to Mexico. Thank you.
All right. Well, hopefully the bus will be here soon, and we can head out for field trips. Thank you, everybody.